And people always told my mother what a great worker I was. So I was proud. So, you know what? I think in hindsight, if I wasn't dyslexic and I didn't have a hard time in school, I don't think I would have been successful, believe it or not. Because I think everything I've done in my life has been one long attempt to show the world that I'm not stupid. So I'm driven because there's a piece of me that always thinks I might not be smart. I mean, I know it's bizarre because I'm smart, but in an insecure situation, I doubt myself sometimes. But I've learned to replace the tape. I don't have Sister Stella Marie in my head anymore telling me I'm stupid. I have a tape of my own telling me I'm incredible. I'm beautiful. Boy, you could do this. This is nothing, you know? I've got that tape that I had to replace over the years, but let me tell you, it took me a lot of years to, I can't say I totally replaced it, but mostly put a nail through its head. But it takes a lot to get over the damage done if your self-perception is a negative one from the get-go, because we all don't leave our childhoods behind so readily. They stay with us, I think.
And you credit it there for your drive.
Absolutely.
But also, you said earlier, if you're driven by these kind of unhealthy insecurities, you need to, at some point, go and see a shrink.
I'm afraid to see a shrink.
Why?
I'm afraid they'll straighten me out. And would I be successful then? I stay a mile away. I know it's crazy. I've read a few books and self-analyze. But no. First of all, they're very expensive in New York. And then that way I'm too cheap to pay. My shrink is working out. If I work out or if I weed my garden, I'm straightened out for the moment. Okay. But that's the way it is.
I ask for selfish reasons. I found myself at one point for the same sort of insecurities and feeling like I wasn't enough, being very driven to like prove the world that I was. And at some point that comes at the cost of like this other set of things which are important for happiness, relationships and balance and whatever else. Mm-hmm. So when you said about at some point you need to go see a shrink, I get it, because at some point you can be a bit too dragged by your pursuit to prove the world that you are enough, that you
of course it's too much.
Compromise a bunch of other things.
Of course you do. I mean, if you're strong in one arena, something's got to give. Right?
What had to give for you?
Relaxing. I don't think I've ever relaxed in my life. But honestly, when I'm relaxed, reading a book, it's fine for a half hour. And then I got to get up and accomplish something. I'm very driven to accomplish, to see the difference I've made in the world. To an individual I just spoke to a business I've been involved in, to a neighbor I've befriended.
Why?
I've got to, why? Because I want to know for sure, without a doubt, that I haven't wasted a minute and that my existence makes a difference.
Why?
Because I think it's important. Why? Well, you ask good questions. Damn you. Why? Why is that? Because I don't want it to be a wasted life. You know, I'm just one of those that you get one shot at it, and I want to see how much of an influence and how much of a difference I can make. I really do. I mean, so I guess relaxing feels like wasting time. It doesn't mean that I can't have fun with friends. I have the most great circle of close friends that I have so much fun with. That's a priority in my life, and it was a priority in my business. Fun is number one in developing teams, I believe. But in addition to that, I just have to be productive. I do need a shrink, don't I? Do you have one in the house?
No, but if you find
Would they
one,
give me a
send it my way.
courtesy hour?
Courtesy hour. Trying to get a discount. Off you went into the world of work, as you said. You had some.
By the way, you would make a good shrink.
Oh,
Can't we just switch gears a little and you do me?
You don't realize what's happening here. I'm actually using you as my shrink.
Oh,
what-
really?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I ask questions that I genuinely care about. And typically that means because I'm struggling with something. So that's why I was pursuing that avenue so diligently. You had some 22 or 23 jobs before you started your own business.
Yes, I do.
Jobs from everything from being a receptionist to a waitress to everything in between. We often look back at those jobs that didn't pay us a lot and that the world doesn't hold in high regard, as some people might think that they are a waste of time or they were like necessary. What's your view on when you were a receptionist and a waitress? What role did that play in your overall success?
I think whether you have a menial job or an important job, it's what you're learning. I mean, there wasn't a job where I didn't learn a lot. For me, I would take any job, not based on pay, but gee, what could I learn? What could I learn? Because that made you more valuable. I never really thought it made you more valuable to be paid more. But hey, I haven't done this before. Let's see what this is about. And you learn skills. I think I learned more through my waitressing jobs. I always had a few at once. You could always get a waitress job behind the counter. I think I learned more about people waitressing than building my business. Honest to God. You have to size someone up. Your territory is your counter. You have to make them happy. You want to upsell them a little bit. Maybe you give the second cup of coffee for free, but how about a slice of cheesecake? It's really good today. You learn how to hustle. You learn how to be organized, how to get the containers in order, how to make sure they're filled when the customer steps out, how to get that person something to drink while you're working on this person. I mean, I learned so much in every one of those jobs. And you know what's great about having a lot of jobs? You start to get a profile of what you're good at and what you're not. And I, in short order, after maybe 7 or 8 jobs, not that I knew what I was going to do for a living, but I knew what I was good at. I knew I was good at getting along with people and making them. I could talk to somebody and make them happy, absolutely. And I also knew that I was efficient. I could create a system in anything. I would see the diner counter all wrong, not running right. I would talk to the boss, say, you know, if you did this with the maple syrup and change the sugar, and I could, like an executive, I could rearrange the whole counters, you know, in an efficient manner. And I started learning that those were my 2 gifts, people and efficiency. And if you think about any business, those are really big ticket items. If you could choose people, motivate people, get along with people, make them get along with each other, plus create systems to grow a big business. I mean, the minute you have more than a half dozen people, you need systems. And my companies were always so well organized that they just ran like a Swiss clock. Is that a good analogy? Everything was in its place. Nothing had to be duplicated. It was fast forward. And so I was able to build very quickly, which I had to do because we had big people in my market. And if I had built and replicated systems at a normal pace, I would never catch up to them. So I had to do double, triple time. And what's your answer on that one? Systems. Systems get you moving forward, get a business like a machine, you know? And that was a gift I got from my menial jobs. Thank God I worked. Imagine if I hadn't worked and went out into the real world thinking I was dumb, that I couldn't do anything, just because I couldn't read or write. Thank God I learned I could be a lifeguard, I could be a tent salesman, I could be Barbara Buttons calling for solicitations 8 hours a day, I could be all those menial jobs, a hot dog salesman, sell more hot dogs than the next guy. I mean, I had confidence from every one of those jobs, like, look how cool I am. Maybe I wouldn't win respect by everybody. Well, who cares about the hot dogs? But in my book, I knew I sold more hot dogs than he sold on his. So no, thank God for the jobs. You learn so much by trying different jobs on. You know, it's so important.
At that age, if I'd asked you what your dream was, what would you have answered?
I wouldn't have answered the question. I wouldn't have answered the question. I had no idea. I would say I just want to work. I just want to, quote, work. It didn't make a difference what I was working at. I just knew that when I was working, I felt capable. That's all.
And conversely then, what are you bad at? I think, as you said, it's very important to know strengths but also weaknesses.
You know what I'm bad at? I'm bad at math, numbers. Terrible. Just terrible, really. I don't even understand. I took algebra 4 times, 2 years in summer school. Never passed it. They finally just gave me a grade to go through. I'm very bad at math. I'm bad at legal. I'm bad at committee meetings. I'm bad at listening to a blowhard who just goes on, doesn't cut to the chase. I'm very bad at impatience. I want to know what you want from me, and then you tell me how you got there. I don't want to hear how you got there and then what you want. I always want to cut to the chase, so I'm impatient. I've learned to hide it because you can't be so visibly impatient with people. But as long as they tell me what they want on the front end, I can hang in there for the long explanation after, because I've already concluded what I'm going to do, you know. So that's what I'm bad at. But lucky for me, I've always surrounded myself with people who are opposite to me, you know. And by the way, I shouldn't really say I'm bad at numbers, because I had a business partner, my 10% business partner, Esther, my whole life. I made her my partner. She was great at legal and finance, and she used to spend hours when we wanted to open 1 or 2 new offices doing the numbers to see if we could afford it. And I used to come into her office and say, what do you think? She says, I don't think we should really do it. I said, well, let me tell you why we're going to do it, because you really need to beat the next guy. And let me tell you, if we have $80,000 and the desk produces only 42, it's going to take us about 9 months to actually meet our overhead, and we'll have to cut back on the advertising, and we'll have the managers work for free. And she'd say, what? And it worked every time. So I must have had a taste for numbers in that kind of a way. I could always see the picture on numbers, and I'd be right. It bugged the crap out of her. She had all the numbers. But, yeah, but I'm not good at adding up the numbers at all.
A lot of people think, I think it's really liberating to hear that, they probably exclude themselves mentally of being a business person because they are bad at numbers.
Oh, gosh. I think numbers are the least important thing in business, by far. I look at all the entrepreneurs I've invested in Shark Tank. I am telling you, the most successful, I hope I'm not giving anybody the short ball here, but the most successful are not good at numbers. They're exceptional at people. I think if you're great at people and you have ambition, you have the 2 magic cards. To succeed in business, you do. That's what it's about. People and ambition, drive to get to the finish line. Yeah. Then you find a way, you hire the people you need, you borrow the people you need, you exchange your gift for their gift part-time if you have to get what you need. But you always get what you need if you know what you need.
Talking about borrowing, you borrowed $1,000 off Ray.
Yeah, Ramon Simone, yeah.
Ramon Simone.
Nice name, huh?
Ramon Simone, wow, okay. And he was your boyfriend at the time?
He was my boyfriend. I met him at the diner. That was my last diner job. And he offered to loan me $1,000 to start a business within 3 months.
Did you ask him for the money?
No. He said, you've got a great personality. You'd be great in real estate sales. Why don't you start a business? And that's how it happened.
Really?
Yeah. So he had a gift for seeing talent, obviously. Yeah.
And then off you go. 24 years old, you started your own...
23. But let me tell you something, thank God. At 23, you don't know what to be afraid of. You don't know what falling off a cliff's about. And 23 and poor, you have nothing to lose. There was no risk involved. I could always get my diner job back, or any waitress job, or a pool handler. I had millions of jobs I could get. I wasn't afraid of being unemployed. So I figured, what the heck, I'll try it. Let's see where it goes. However, what I didn't know, and when the light went on in my head, was I didn't know how much I would like being a boss. First day, I'm like, I love this. Did I like real estate? Nah, I didn't really care about real estate. Did I like the people I was meeting? They're all nice, but I have been meeting nice people my whole life. But I love the fact that I was in charge. And so I loved real estate. I loved the people. I loved the paint on the wall. I loved everything because I was a boss. I was meant for being a boss. I felt so free to dream and do whatever I wanted, and nobody could tell me what to do. It was the greatest gift of all. Freedom. I'm getting juicy just talking about it.
That real estate company became very big. Am I right in thinking it became the biggest
residential firm in New York? Yes, before I sold it, we were number 1.
The biggest residential real estate firm in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because there's so many residential firms in New York. There's so many like real estate people. They're everywhere. I mean, every person I meet is in real estate in New York. So how do you become the best?
Honestly, I think there's a lot of reasons how you succeed, right? But I think the major cards were I was competing with the Old Boys Network, and they were super good work. It's not that they didn't do good work, but you have to realize real estate brokerage in New York when I was started, and I guess it's somewhat the same, was controlled by rich guys who inherited the business from their father or their grandfather before them. So they were very important, very self-important, very well educated, very good at what they did, but they did the same old thing. They did it the same old way. And they also hired people like themselves. They were white, privileged, and they hired white, privileged women to work for them. That was a whole cast of characters. When I came in, I couldn't get those white privileged women to work for me because I was a kid, I didn't know anything, and it would no status associated with it. We were a new kid in town, we had 3 people. Who was going to work for me? I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get anybody to work for me. And so they were cocky. And the minute I smelled that they were cocky, which happened to me about the 3rd year in business when I went to a large real estate board in New York meeting, I remember I went home and I said, I'm going to beat these guys. And I knew it because they were very cocky that they were in charge.
And what weakness did that create?
A tremendous weakness. They're blind. It's like competing with blind people. They were also rich enough not to want to lose money. When the market went south, which happens again and again in real estate, it's up-down market, they would not spend money. They would hold their money in and protect it. They would not take a chance because of the reputation. They would check what they were going to do against a committee. I didn't have committees. They would check what they were going to do against their attorneys. They had attorneys. They were all stop signs. I would think of an idea on a Tuesday and have it in the street by Wednesday. They would think of an idea on Tuesday if they even thought of it, or if they listened to a good employee who had a good idea, which tended not to do. It was always their ideas. But if they listened to that employee, they'd have to check it with the committee, work it up the line, talk to their dad, talk to the attorneys. I'm like, thank God, they're in quicksand. So I think a big reason why I was able to succeed is because I competed against the norm of an old boy network. If I had to compete with other people like me, wanting to prove something, desperate to make a go of it, I would have had that hunger to compete with. These guys weren't hungry. They were well-fed and well-vacationed, and they liked it that way.
One of the things I took from that is whenever you're competing against like a big, complacent, slow incumbent, being the opposite of the incumbent is the winning strategy. You were quick because you didn't have that bureaucracy or sign off for lawyers. You were like high risk, you were agile, and you were naive.
You know what else I had, which isn't to be underestimated? I had a wonderful imagination. I would think of the greatest bullshit to create publicity every day of the week. I just would dream up some stupid stuff and give it to the papers or the TV stations. I would churn out reports that I had no business turning out. But I could think of an idea a minute, and I would just throw it out there and see what happened. Nobody was thinking of new ideas in real estate. It was about controlling the listing market and controlling the number of bodies working for you. That was the only game in town, not how you did it or what differently you could do. Nobody even really was concerned about the customer or the sellers. They just want to know if they had a contact with them because it was a contact game. But I came into a different generation where contacts meant less in New York. As the waters of New York changed and everybody started coming to New York, and different nationalities and different colors of people, everything was changing. And these guys really thought it was not changed, you know? So it was such an advantage to have a lot of ideas and to have tattered soldiers, anybody you can get your hands on, and to make them believe they were as good as the fancy people. And my people believed they were as good. And you know what? They were as good, and they were better in the end because they all hustled, and they all had something to prove. You know, we were all the poor kids trying to make it in New York. You know, so we were all driven, you know. We were soulmates in a way.
That company culture and that like philosophy, you're citing that as being really pivotal to why you were successful. What does that mean, like culture, and how do you go about creating that culture?
The main part is having fun with your people. I put fun before anything. I mean, I certainly wanted to drive sales hard, open new offices, hire new people, nurture a great management system, all the things that go into any business. But more than that, I wanted to make sure everybody loved each other. And the way you get to break down barriers between people who all compete with each other. Remember, in sales, you like who you're working with, but you don't really totally like them because they're after your market. So you have friend enemies, really, in a way. And so I believe that you, if you had enough fun with your people, it was a great equalizer. When people laugh together, they come up with new ideas. When people laugh together, they loosen up. I used to have people dress for my parties or they couldn't come in. I would have them dressed 1940s, 1950s. I had them cross-dressed. Oh, what a rebellion at the keynote. The straight guys, I'm not cross-dressing for her. Of course they cross-dressed for me. I had a party where everybody dressed as a nun. I'm not going as a nun. Of course they came as a nun. Do you know how exciting it is to be in the Waldorf Astoria Ballroom and see 1,000 nuns at a party? It's a blast and so much fun. So we would have picnics, parties. I would take the women spontaneously. Hey, come with me. We're going downstairs to Barney. I'm buying you new underwear. Why? Because it's so bizarre. And they all go down and pick out the most expensive underwear they could find. I mean, this bizarre stuff made them tell everybody who wasn't in the company, oh, God, guess what we did? It was an adventure. And sooner or later, what happened after about, I guess, maybe 10, 12 years, I didn't have to recruit anymore. Our reputation as being the best place to work started recruiting for us. My salespeople recruited for us just by repeating stories that happened every day. And so I do believe you create a great imaginative culture if you could insist on giving as much attention to planning good fun. I don't mean boring Christmas party where you drink, nothing like that. Some bizarre means of having fun. Everybody doesn't have enough fun and they want to stay with you. I had no turnover in my company, none. In a business that's loaded with turnover. Of course, I fired a third of my staff every year because they couldn't sell. But other than the ones that couldn't sell, no one ever left for another firm. They had too much fun at us. Why would they leave? For the same commission spread? I don't think so.
5 years in to that business, to that venture, Ramon Simone runs off with your PA.
Yeah, she was much prettier than I. 10 years younger. I don't blame her. In hindsight, I don't blame her. At the time, I didn't like it.
He was your boyfriend at the time?
He was my boyfriend at the time. He was my 51% business partner because he took 51%. He said because he was financing the firm, which was fair. I was the managing partner. I liked the way that sounded. Yes, but he ran off with my business, with my secretary, the 7th year we were in business. Yeah. That was shocking. I didn't expect that. But you know, those blows that happen to your ego seem the worst at the time. But it doesn't take you long to realize why they happen and why they're the best things. I mean, if he didn't run off with her, I would have never started the corporate group. I'd still be corporate Simone working with him. I mean, that got me off my butt to start my own company without his help right away because I was a scorned woman. And I couldn't stand seeing them throw kisses at each other during the workday. It drove me crazy. And so I left. I just left. We cut the company in half. At the time, we only had 14 people. He took 7, I took 7, and off I went. Thank God that happened. And then he gave me those wonderful parting words. You'll never succeed without me. Thank you, Ray.
Did that drive you, those words, for
I was
for Sid?
pissed. When he said that, I was like, vicious. I hated him for it. But I walked out the door hating him for it. I hated him for it the next month, the year after that, and the year after that. And then I started thanking him for it.
Really?
Yeah. I realized it was a gift. You know, insult can really be a wonderful motivator. With my entrepreneurs that I invested on Shark Tank, I love it when I can find an entrepreneur that had a horrible dad, had this go wrong, that go wrong, because they're angry. They're angry and they have more to prove. I love an entrepreneur like that. I relate to them.
That prejudice you experienced in that male-dominated industry, is it easier to manipulate people when they have a prejudice against you?
First of all, you have to realize they didn't see me. I was invisible to them. They didn't take me seriously. Why would they take me seriously? Even the day I realized I was invisible, I realized I had the advantage. I said, nobody's watching me.
Does that make them easy to manipulate, these men?
Well, I don't know if it meant I manipulated them, but it was easier to compete.
Because the word manipulate is like a dirty word. But at the end of the day, if someone is thinking that you don't matter and they're like disrespecting you or they are sexist towards you, their underestimation seems like an opportunity.
It's a great opportunity. You know who was easy to manipulate, though? Because when the business got large, we were more dependent on huge development sites where they had 300-400 condos for sale. We'd have to get control of that building. And I was the salesman who got the control. I went out after the developers. The developers you could manipulate easily as a woman. They had all men working for them. It was a man's world, real estate. The developers didn't take me seriously at all, but I flirted. I cajoled. I wore short skirts. I dressed well in tight suits. I played my cards. I wore high heels even though my feet were killing me. Yeah, did I manipulate them? Of course I did. Did I tell them they looked handsome? They were all handsome. Did I tell them they were brilliant? Good, brilliant. They were all brilliant. Did I manipulate? Yes. I don't even think I'll go to heaven if you want to call it manipulation.
And your workforce, if I spoke to one of your employees and said, what's Barbara like to work with? What do you imagine they would say to me?
I know what they would say, and you won't believe me. They would say, I love Barbara.
Well,
She's
I actually
perfect.
spoke to your assistant.